One thing that's absolutely amazing about music, just in general, but rock music for me, is when you can watch a band evolve over time with the times. They can change their sound a little bit, maybe change the vocals, maybe change the way they write their lyrics. Whatever they do to present that change to the fan base or a new fan base, if it works, it's great. But if it feels right for the band and it's authentic, it's even better and it's more obvious to us. One band that did that throughout the course of their career, and one of my favorite bands of all time we're going to talk about today, is AFI. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back, music lovers, especially my rock music lovers. That's right. Listen, do me a favor. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. That is huge for me in this channel. It'll absolutely help me grow. And you know the drill. If you've been here before, YouTube puts me out there to a more vast audience. The more likes, the more views, the more subscribers. It absolutely helps. So please, if you're not, do so right now. Now listen, before I kind of dive into AFI as a band, I got to say this. As a young kid, preteen, going into the teenage years, I heard a lot of bands, whether it was, my friends' older brothers or just kids from, school. And when I talk about punk music in general, if you were a skateboarder in high school or junior high, or if you hung out with your brother and they hung out with those type of people, you were diving into a type of music that was its own little world. And I'm talking about any style of punk music. Could have been hardcore street punk, could have been skate punk, could have been, pop punk, whatever it was. It was a community that could come together. Now, there was a divide there between certain styles. Bands like the Casualties and the Exploited. Sometimes, you wouldn't always see them getting along with people listening to Green Day or Rancid or NoFX. But really, if you could break that wall down, we were all in the same community. It was punk music. It was music that was about the same thing, having fun and just living life. And AFI for me was that band. It absolutely was that band that 100% drew me into that world and helped me go down that rabbit hole of all these other different bands that I could be introduced to. And inevitably, I fell in love with a lot of them. But AFI was that band. Huge for me. And no doubt, I've been wanting to do this video for a while. So we got to talk about this band, their evolution, and the amazing music they've created over the years. Let's dive into it right now. So the moment I was into AFI and I knew who this band was and they existed, I was all in, 100%. If there was a show anywhere near me, I wanted to go see it. If there was an interview from the guys, I had to watch it. I wanted to know everything about these dudes. For me, they were extremely badass. From the moment in 1991 when Davey Havok started the band while he was still in high school, his two buddies, Mark Stoffelis and Vic Chalker, came in, joined the band. It was Mark Stoffelis that recommended Adam Carson to come in and be their drummer. Adam's still the drummer today, and he's still kicking ass. Wasn't long after that, Vic Chalker left the band. They brought in Jeff Kresge to, round out the four-piece, and that was pretty much the set lineup for the next few years while the band was blowing up. Up until 1993 when they released their first EP, Dork, which was badass, by the way. And when I found out it existed, they had already released 5 albums and a few EPs before I ever found out about this. Went back and listened to it. It was just as badass as anything they'd ever done. Now, up until 1993 when they released this EP, they were doing pretty damn decent. But the guys went off to college and the band disbanded, only for a moment. So it was during that 1993 Christmas break while the guys were off to college that they got back together. They did a reunion show in Petaluma, California at the Phoenix Theater. It was said after that show, Davey said it was absolutely phenomenal. The crowd was electric. It was amazing. And they could just feel the love. And they knew they had to do this thing full time. And eventually the guys relocated to Berkeley, California, went into an old fraternity house, turned that into their headquarters per se. And from that moment on, they recorded 3 vinyl EPs, awesome EPs, Behind the Times, Eddie Picnic's All Wet, and Fly in the Ointment, along with some compilation EPs they did during that time. And that just led up to an amazing moment where they were finally going to do and release their debut album. So July 4th of 1995 was huge. That's when AFI released their debut album, Answer That and Stay Fashionable. Everything about this album was cool. It was awesome, just cool punk songs. And the cover art was amazing. It was a play on Reservoir Dogs, which was an awesome movie. Awesome cover art in itself. Answer That was pretty much just that, just a punk music version of it. Just a cool cover. If you didn't know the band and you saw the cover, you're like, what the hell is this? I got to check this out. It's pretty much what it was. And after this album's release, the term East Bay Hardcore was pretty much coined by Davey and the guys and other bands from that area. It was just a new wave of sound coming from that area, and an awesome, awesome sound at that. Not only that, after this album, the guy signed with Nitro Records, which was started by the man himself, Dexter Holland from The Offspring, and pretty much they stayed with that label all the way up until 2002. So this was kind of a beautiful start to a new era, and that would lead up to 1996's release of their second studio album. And I'm pretty much going to squeeze in their first 3 albums into what I call the first category, which was early AFI, because this band is such an amazing journey with an evolution that's just mind-boggling, and yet they're still badass today. But that second album, Very Proud of You, in 1996, came out. They're now with Nitro Records. This was just another brilliant punk album. They re-recorded 2 of the songs from Answer That on this album, and then everything else was brand new. And there was so many songs on this album, but great, great music. The thing was, the cover art on this was completely different from Answer That, yet it was another one of those 90s punk album covers. I mean, you look at it and you say, that is a 90s punk album. It's everything you would expect from it. Just cartoonish characters, and it just made no sense, but that was the point. And then you go on to their third studio album. This is where things start to get interesting for the better, in my opinion. You had Jeff Kresge, who would end up leaving the band after the recording of Very Proud of You. Okay, they brought in Hunter Bergen to be the bassist for the rest of the tour they were on. Also, he would play bass for their third studio album, which would be released in 1997, Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes. It wasn't a permanent, position at the time, but he filled in, and it eventually would turn into just that. He would remain with the band, which he's still with the band today. So they got in the studio to record that third studio album, Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes. And again, the cover art on this is absolutely amazing. I remember being so intrigued. I could just look at this cover and just like, what does this mean? There's something behind the meaning of this album, the cover art. Their first 3 albums, completely different. There was no trend or theme. It was just whatever the hell the guys want. And that third album was when I really, really dove into them. The song Third Season, absolutely epic song. Even the video for it was just phenomenal. I mean, this is when I knew that Davey Havok had an amazing voice. These guys were absolutely badass. And I just kept wondering what would be next for these guys. Well, what was next was going to be completely different. Because as they were recording Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes, their third studio album, they brought in Jade Puget to play as a second guitarist. Now, Davey and Jade were good friends already. Jade had already played with the band Influence 13. They had played together. They had done stuff together. So there was already a relationship there. So him adding backup vocals and a second guitar on this album wasn't out of the norm. But when Mark left the band after recording this album, Jade pretty much filled in for any touring. And that eventually, just like Hunter, turned into a permanent gig. And this, for me, is when AFI got into that second phase, which was an even more badass phase. So what was next for AFI was huge. And this is what I'll call their second phase. And this is probably their biggest phase ever. This is what really set them apart from where they were going. And it was absolutely huge. You go with 1999. They did 2 amazing things in 99. They released their 4th studio album, Black Sails in the Sunset. Again, the cover art, phenomenal. You look at it and wonder, what the hell does this mean? And it probably means absolutely nothing, but it was just beautiful, amazing cover art. And that really produced my first, absolutely favorite song by them, one that I could stop listening to. I just listened to it and listened to it and listened to it. And that was the song, The Prayer Position. Absolutely phenomenal song. And that's when you started to realize, okay, Davey Havok's really taking on more of a singer-songwriter mentality. His vocals were more of a, I'm going to keep my hardcore roots with the fast pace and the growling and the yelling, but I'm going to be singing, and there's going to be more melodic tone to what I'm doing on this album. And that's how it kind of remained moving forward even to today. A phenomenal album, some amazing songs. God Called In Sick Today. The first time I saw them live perform that song, which was actually the 3rd time I ever seen them live, they played it as their last song, and you could feel the vibe of the people when that song came on, and it was just absolutely amazing. But also in 1990, they released their All Hallows EP, which was, again, phenomenal. 4-track EP, but beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Fall Children, awesome song. They covered the Misfits' Halloween. They did a phenomenal job at it. They also recorded what was my favorite song and still my favorite song today. So whenever it hit the opening notes to this song at a live show, which I've seen AFI so many times, I lose my freaking mind. Total Immortal, my favorite AFI song. And then you also had The Boy Who Destroyed the World, which was featured on Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. Another amazing track. So that EP is my favorite AFI EP, and by far, for amazing songs done by them. I listened to that thing on repeat over and over and over and over again. So 1999 was a huge turning point for AFI, and a huge year and a great year for the band. But led into the year 2000, where they released their 5th studio album, The Art of Drowning. The Art of Drowning was really a step up for the guys, because when they released that, I mean, they were hitting the charts. They hit the Billboard charts at 174 with this album. That was new for the guys. They hit the Heat Seekers chart at number 9 with this album. Absolutely amazing. But it also had the track Days of the Phoenix, which was gotta be their first big hit, because it was played on the radio. You know, you had K-Rock out in Los Angeles playing Days of the Phoenix all the time. I mean, this was really the time. It isn't their big mainstream success turning point, but it was them getting to that point, because Art of Drowning, it was that amazing album that really started to get the guys noticed. They were at that point now where they were almost weren't a kept secret. If you were a big AFI fan, you couldn't say my favorite band's AFI, and people really didn't know who they were. But that really changed in 2002 with the release of Sing the Sorrow. Once Sing the Sorrow came out, there was no more secret with AFI. When I told my friends in high school, you know, AFI is my favorite band, they knew who it were, because they saw the Girls Not Grey video on MTV2, and it just wasn't they weren't the best kept secret no more, in my opinion, in the punk rock community. I mean, Davey changed his look, still singing, doing great. The Girls Not Grey video got out. The guys blew up. They were winning MTV awards for that video, for that song. You had the Leaving Song Part 2. Freaking awesome song, awesome video. Dancing Through Sunday was one of my favorite songs off Sing the Sorrow. I mean, you had Silver and Cold. I mean, these guys, they blew up. And now they were in this stratosphere of mainstream, which was completely weird for me, knowing where they came from. And now you're seeing them on MTV. But they kept that mystique, and they kept that coolness to them, no matter what. Through those next 3 albums, Black Sails in the Sunset, The Art of Drowning, and Sing the Sorrow, they were slowly just blowing up into this band that you just couldn't hold them back behind that wall anymore of, hey, we're from the East Bay, we're from the Bay Area, East Bay hardcore, but they're from that area. You couldn't hold them back anymore. They were now into the mainstream, and they were a badass band that just couldn't help but be noticed. And that was it right there. That was the turning point. And then AFI became this whole new band, but still that badass AFI mystique sound. And even if you were an old fan, you still love the guys. But when AFI did the recording for Sing the Sorrow, they had left Nitro Records that year in 2002. They signed with DreamWorks. That's who released Sing the Sorrow for them. Now, the huge mainstream success just couldn't be denied, and that continued on for the next few years until they finally released their 7th studio album, The December Underground. Now, December Underground was just another huge mainstream success. You had Miss Murder, you had Love Like Winter, and for me as an AFI fan, it was a good damn album. I listened to the whole damn album and loved it. But you know, the hits like the 2 I just mentioned were all over the radio. You had the music videos for them. More people knew who AFI was, and the mainstream success just continued to grow. And around that time, especially with Davey Havit's look, you know, I would get more people talking about him, you know, bashing his look. He had a very kind of feminine style. He had kind of that, you know, David Bowie thing where, like, you know, okay, I'm going to do my style, my way. I don't give a shit what nobody else thinks. I didn't give a shit about that. I loved that. I already loved Davey Havok. I loved AFI so much. I didn't care about his style. It meant nothing to me. It was about the music. But you couldn't help but hear the haters just bashing Davey for the way he looked. And at this point with December Underground, his style had changed to that point to where it was, you know, he had the bright silver eyeliner, the eyelashes, and I didn't care, man. Davey Havok's a badass frontman, a badass singer, and December Underground was just another badass album for them. And I put December Underground kind of in its own phase. You know, goes with that phase where Sing of Sorrow, you know, Art of Drowning, and Black Sails, but it was kind of a change in style and growth. And you could tell their age was kind of showing as with the lyrics and the style. And then anything after December Underground. So I put it in its own category. December Underground is its own category for AFI. After that, that's when we go into that phase of these guys are grown up, you know, they see the world through a different view, and it was clearly obvious in their next few albums. So in 2009, AFI released Crash Love, which was another album when I knew it was coming, I was anticipating it. Every album pretty much after Black Sails, when I had developed such a huge fandom for him, every album I knew was coming out, I anticipated it so much. I was ready for it. And it was no different with Crash Love. And the other two, obviously, signature hits off there, Medicate and Beautiful Thieves. Beautiful Thieves, awesome song. Cool video. Love it. I mean, the whole album, again, is just amazing AFI. Love it. But this is the point where you start to say, okay, the guys are coming into their age. They're older. They're not the young kids from the Bay Area doing, hardcore skate punk or whatever it was. They were growing with their style into their age. And they did it amazingly. 2013 Burials, that album, man, because you knew Jade and Davey were talking about all this new material because they were doing all their stuff with Black Audio as well. You never knew when new AFI material was coming out. So when Burials came out in 2013, again, I was at the point in my life also where I was growing into my age. So it was like, I never grew away from them, but, they were spreading things out just as well as I was so into my life as like, what the hell am I going to do? I'm getting older. I got to figure shit out. And Burials came out in 2013 and it was like a breath of fresh air. I was like, man, it took me back. I got to listen to new AFI material and I was just ecstatic. I loved it. And then, 2017 they released, it was pretty much a self-titled album. Kind of took on the moniker of the Blood Album because of the cover art. But it reminds me of, Metallica's Black Album. Everybody calls it the Black Album, but really it was a self-titled album. Same thing with AFI 2017 with this album. Another awesome album. Again, it's like this phase with Crash Love, Burials, and the Blood Album. We'll call it that. It was like that phase, and we'll even add in 2021's Bodies. Those 4 albums, their last 4 albums that they've done, have been amazing. And it's just like, okay, this is AFI now. These guys are older. They're blending into their age with the sound, with the lyrics, with the style. And Davey's style has always changed over the years. From Sing the Sorrow when he grew his hair out long and it remained that way for the next few years till December Underground when he kind of took on that, I'm not going to say it was I'll call it an extra size devil lock. He had the devil lock around 1999 when he was doing Black Sails and the All Hallows EP. This kind of new look was a little different for December Underground. But the makeup, the silver streak in the hair, all that stuff was a new style. But you've seen the change going into Crash Love. A little more, I'm having a scruffy beard, short hair. It was just an awesome evolution. As the band evolved, the band evolves as Davey evolves. I'll say it like that. Davey is man front and center. He is the guy. He is AFI. He started the band. And, it's whatever Davey says pretty much. And I don't mean that like he's like one of those guys that it's his way or the highway like some bands. No, it's just Davey is the guy. So as he goes, the band goes. And these last 4 albums that AFI done have been absolutely phenomenal. Again, I've had so much fun doing this. There's so many little details through AFI's journey that we could have put in. I could have made this video 2 hours long. I just want to kind of hit some main points and just show you that this is the most fun video I've ever done so far because AFI was such a huge influence on me growing up. One of my favorite bands. Still to this day, I have so much respect for those guys. For Hunter, for Jade, for Davey, for Adam. Even the guys that came before, Vic, Jeff, Mark. All those guys that were involved in AFI. That was something amazing. They should all be happy with what they've done and how far they've came. It's a beautiful thing. Absolutely love it. Love this band. Love everything they've done. To this day, still respect them. And they're still going strong, doing their thing. And if AFI came to town right now, I would be there. I've seen them 12 times. I would love to make it 13. And I'd love to continue that streak for as long as the guys want to keep touring. But anyway, thank you for watching. Till next time, go out there and take care of your friends and family. Do something amazing. Do something in life that you want to do, that you're passionate about. There's no reason to live life just going through the motions. We don't have to do that. We don't need to do that. Find your niche. Find what you want to do. And fucking go for it. If it don't work out, at least you can say you went for it. You don't want to go through life saying, I wonder if I did. Got to go for it. Till next time, take care of yourself. I'm out.